Television courtrooms are built for drama, but this was self-destruction in real time. A 69-year-old woman in a designer blazer, diamond brooch glittering under the studio lights, was standing there with her finger actually wagging at one of the toughest TV judges in America. "Listen here. Young girl," she said, each word soaked in arrogance. "You don't talk to me that way. I've been on this earth long enough to know when I'm being disrespected." The entire room froze. The audience went dead silent. The bailiff's jaw tightened. Even the camera operators held their breath, framing every micro-expression on the judge's face, every smug twitch at the corner of the old woman's mouth, because you could feel it. Something nuclear was about to go off. Judge Helena Cole, 82 years old. Legendary, zero tolerance for nonsense, lowly narrowed her eyes. She'd sent lawyers twice this woman's size into nervous breakdowns. She'd ended scams, exposed liars, and shredded manipulators on national TV for 2 whole decades. And now, a 69-year-old defendant named Noreen Whitfield had just called her young girl on camera. In less than 2 minutes. That one sentence would cost Noreen $25,000, wreck her reputation, and turn her into the internet's most hated, respect your elders, villain. But to really enjoy what Judge Helena is about to do to this woman, you need to know how we got here, because this case did not start in that studio. It started months earlier, in a little family-run catering business that had never hurt anybody. This story isn't about disrespecting older people. It's about one person who hid behind the words, "Respect your elders," like a shield while she terrorized workers, small businesses, and anyone who dared to say no to her. If you're tired of bullies, tired of fake victims, tired of people weaponizing age to get away with abuse, keep watching. What you're about to hear is one of the most satisfying courtroom smackdowns you'll ever see. Hit that like button now if you want more real-life stories where entitlement finally meets a wall it can't push through. And subscribe, because this channel is all about what happens when manipulators pick a judge who absolutely cannot be controlled. Our plaintiff in this case is 35-year-old David Reyes. David grew up in the back of a hot, noisy kitchen with his parents, who started Reyes Family Kitchen as a tiny street corner food stall 30 years ago. Mexican food made from scratch, no shortcuts, no cheats. Over 3 decades. That stall turned into a small catering company and neighborhood restaurant. Weddings, graduations, christenings, you name it, Reyes Family Kitchen fed it. 3 generations came back again and again. Everyone not part of town knew David's parents by name. David was the kid who did homework between trays of tamales. He learned how to season a giant pot of beans before he learned long division. By the time he turned 25, his parents handed him the keys. He didn't waste them. He updated the branding, built a website, added online booking. But he kept the rules his parents drilled into him. You show up exactly when you say you'll show up. You give people more than they paid for. Fix problems, even if they're not your fault, because your name matters more than the money. For 10 years as owner, David didn't have a single serious complaint. Not one lawsuit. Not one bad health inspection. Not one one-star review that couldn't be solved with a phone call and an apology. Until the day Noreen Whitfield walked in. From the second she stepped into Reyes Family Kitchen, you could tell she was used to being the queen of every room. Perfectly styled white hair, pearl earrings, an expensive handbag clutched just a little too tight. Like a prop, she introduced herself before anyone asked. "I'm Mrs. Whitfield. I'm planning my granddaughter's sweet 16. It has to be perfect." David smiled, grabbed his order pad, and sat her down at a table. She didn't just place an order. She controlled the entire space. She corrected his word choice. She sighed loudly if he didn't write fast enough. She stared at the menu like it was personally disappointing her. "I want a full buffet for 80 guests, she said. Grilled chicken, rice, vegetarian options, salsa that isn't too spicy. And the dessert table needs to look classy, not like some cheap birthday party." David asked careful questions. "How many vegetarians? Any allergies? What time is service? Decor colors?" He'd done this hundreds of times, and he wasn't about to mess it up. He repeated everything back to her. Item by item, 80 guests, grilled chicken, rice and beans. 2. Vegetarian trays. Mild salsa, dessert table with churros, flan, and a small vanilla sheet cake with gold accents. She nodded. He slid a printed contract across the table. Clear. Simple, no tiny fonts. The menu, the time, the address, the total price. $1,800. Half due now, half on delivery. A normal, fair deal for that amount of work. Noreen put on reading glasses, glanced at the paper for maybe 2 seconds, and signed. Do you want to take a copy with you, ma'am? David asked, handing her the duplicate. She waved him off. I trust you. Besides, I've got better things to do than read paperwork. That line would come back to haunt her. She paid the $900 deposit with a platinum card, then added, almost casually, just so you know, I'm very involved in the community. People listen to me. Don't disappoint me. Then she smiled a smile that didn't reach her eyes and left. David should have taken that as a warning. Instead, he saw it as pressure to over-deliver. For the next 2 weeks, he did exactly that. He ordered extra fresh chicken, upgraded the dessert table at his own cost, and had his staff polish every chafing dish twice. He made a detailed prep list, scheduled his best team for that Saturday, and promised himself he'd personally be on that delivery. He even printed the contract and taped it above the kitchen line so everyone knew. This is the standard. This is the plan. Do not deviate. The morning of the party, the kitchen smelled like roasted garlic and cilantro. Trays of marinated chicken went into the oven right on schedule. Rice steamed. Beans simmered. Desserts cooled on racks, lined up like soldiers ready for inspection. David checked every pan. He loaded the van like it was made of glass. The staff secured the trays, strapped down the dessert table. Triple checked the address. Service time, 5 p.m. contract. Arrival, 4 p.m. They pulled up to Noreen's rented banquet hall at 3:55. On time, professional, perfect. David didn't know was that in exactly 30 minutes. His life's work was going to be dragged into a nightmare he couldn't wake up from, because Noreen wasn't just a demanding customer. She was a serial destroyer. And she was about to pick the wrong target the minute David's team wheeled the first cart through the side door of the banquet hall. He knew the food looked good enough to sell itself. Steam rose off the trays. The grilled chicken was perfectly charred, glistening with citrus marinade. The rice was fluffy, the beans creamy, the vegetarian trays colorful and generous. The dessert table looked like a magazine spread gold fabric runner. Stacked plates of churros dusted with sugar, little glass dishes of flan, and that simple vanilla cake with delicate gold piping. He felt proud. Then Noreen appeared. She didn't walk. She swept in, high heels clicking on the polished floor, lips already pressed into a line of disapproval even before she saw a single dish. What is this? She demanded. David smiled, a little confused. Afternoon, Mrs. Whitfield. This is your buffet. We're here an hour early to set up, just like the contract says. She didn't glance at the contract. She never would. Instead, she pointed at the chicken like it had personally insulted her. I ordered steak, she said. Not cheap chicken. And where is the vegan selection? Half my guests are health conscious. And this, she jabbed at the dessert table, this cake is tiny. I clearly said a 3-tier cake. This looks like something for a child's school party. David blinked. Ma'am, that's not what we discussed, he said carefully. You ordered grilled chicken, 2 vegetarian trays, and a sheet cake. It's all written in the contract you signed. I have the copy in the van if you'd like to see it. She laughed, a short, ugly sound. Are you calling me a liar, young man? He kept his voice steady. No, ma'am. I'm saying the contract reflects what we agreed on. I can show you right now. Noreen's voice rose, sharp and shrill, echoing across the room. I know exactly what I ordered. I said steak. I said vegan options. I said a 3-tier cake. You've ruined my granddaughter's party. Guests decorating balloons on the far side of the hall looked over. A DJ setting up speakers paused. David motioned to one of his staff. Go grab the paperwork from the van. He turned back to Noreen. We still have time to adjust a few things. If you want, I can send someone back to the restaurant for extra trays. She cut him off with a sweeping gesture of her hand. I shouldn't have to fix your mistakes. Do you have any idea who I am? People rely on my recommendations. When I say a business is good, everyone books it. When I say a business is bad. She let the sentence hang in the air. David tried to show her the contract when his staff brought it in. The paper was clear. Grilled chicken dash check. .2 vegetarian trays check. Dessert table with churros. Flan and small vanilla cake check. Noreen glanced at it for half a second, then pushed it away like it was contaminated. I don't care what you wrote, she snapped. You must have written it wrong. I know what I said. And I'm not feeding my guests chicken like they're at some truck stop. Okay, David said, shifting gears. Here's what I can do. We can add 2 more vegetarian trays at no charge. I can discount your final bill by 20%. And for the cake issue, I can give you a separate, larger cake tomorrow for a family dinner, free of charge. It was a generous offer. It would cost him several $100s in ingredients and labor. But he wanted to fix it. Noreen's eyes flashed. I don't want your hand-me-down fixes. I want what I ordered today before my guests arrive. I want proper food, proper desserts, and a proper apology. Otherwise, you will regret ever taking this booking. David glanced at the clock. It was 4:10. Guests were already trickling in. Mom, with respect, we can't create an entirely new menu for 80 people in 45 minutes. That's physically impossible. She leaned in, voice low and dripping with menace. Not my problem. Fix it, now. He straightened, finally letting the steel into his tone. I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitfield. We delivered exactly what you ordered. Exactly when you asked for it, at the price we agreed on. I've offered you more than a fair solution. I can invent time. Her face went red. Then take it away, she hissed. All of it. Get it out of here. I'll find someone competent. Are you sure? David asked, stunned. The guests are arriving. They will have nothing to eat. She folded her arms. Better no food than bad food. There it was, David signaled to his staff. They quietly began packing the food back onto the carts. It went against everything in him to let good food go uneaten, but he wasn't going to beg to serve someone who clearly wanted a fight. Not a meal. As they wheeled the last cart out, Noreen called after him in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, and from everyone in this city when I tell them how you ruined my granddaughter's big day. David drove back to the restaurant with a knot in his stomach. The staff were angry and confused. What are we supposed to do with all this food? One asked. We'll box it and donate it to the shelter, David said. At least someone will enjoy it. He tried to shake it off. Not every customer can be happy. Maybe he thought she'd calm down after the party. Maybe they could work something out. Maybe she'd accept the discount he'd emailed her that evening as a peace offering. Full refund of the remaining $900. Balance and a $300 voucher for future catering. He was wrong. By the time he woke up the next morning, the real attack had already begun. Rhea's family kitchen had gone from 4.9 stars to 3.2 overnight on Google. There it was, a scathing 1-star review from Noreen Dayu, describing the worst catering experience of my life. She claimed the food was cold and undercooked. She said the chicken was raw despite the fact that nobody ate it. She insisted the desserts were sloppy and tasted like they came from a freezer aisle. She said David raised his voice at her and stormed out, leaving her with nothing but embarrassment. She copy-pasted the same, reviewed a Yelp, Facebook, and every local business directory she could find. Then she went further. She joined neighborhood Facebook groups she'd never posted in before, writing long, dramatic paragraphs about how Ray's family kitchen had betrayed a grandmother's trust and humiliated her family. She uploaded photos of the buffet, not as it actually looked, but after she'd yanked foil back and forth, deliberately messing up the presentation. Close-ups of half-moved trays, zoomed in on any stray grain of rice like it proved filth, under each post. She commented again and again, please share so no one else has to go through this. Do not book this caterer. I'm considering legal action. I won't be silenced. Over the next week, 3 more one-star reviews appeared from accounts with no profile pictures, all telling suspiciously similar stories. A month later, health inspectors showed up without warning. Twice, we got an anonymous complaint. They said both times. Of course, they found nothing. The kitchen passed with flying colors. But David watched regulars at tables go quiet as inspectors walked through in their uniforms, clipboards out. He saw the doubt in their eyes. Then one of his suppliers called. "Hey, David, we just got a weird message from some lady saying your business is on the verge of closing and we should demand cash only. Everything okay?" Another week, another blow. The Better Business Bureau emailed a formal complaint from Mrs. Noreen Whitfield, accusing Ray's family kitchen of fraud, negligence, and emotional damage. David scheduled a meeting with his accountant in 6 weeks. He'd lost over $10,000 in canceled bookings and lost referrals. Brides who were about to call and book suddenly ghosted. Office managers shifted their regular lunch orders to other caterers. Party planners quietly said, "We're just going in a different direction." All because one woman refused to accept that. She'd signed a contract and gotten exactly what she asked for. David tried everything to stop it. He emailed Noreen repeatedly, offering a full refund of her deposit. She refused. He offered to cater a smaller family dinner at cost. She refused. He offered her $1,000 in total. Just to resolve it. Her reply was chillingly simple. "I don't want your money. I want you to admit you ruined the party. Post it publicly. Then we'll talk." It wasn't about compensation. It was about power. 6 weeks turned into 3 months. 3 months into 6. The damage piled up. David stopped sleeping properly. His parents looked 10 years older, watching everything they'd built get dragged through the mud by a woman who'd eaten not one bite of their food. And just when he thought it couldn't get worse, a letter arrived. Small Claims Court, Noreen Whitfield, was suing him for $4,500 emotional distress, humiliation, and the cost of a last-minute replacement caterer. David stared at the papers, then slowly smiled, the first honest smile in months. If she wanted court, fine, but he wasn't going to give her the small, quiet courtroom she expected. Was going to give her an audience of millions. David had seen clips of Judge Helena Cole's show before. If you've ever watched those viral courtroom moments where a judge slices through excuses like a hot knife through butter, you know the type. No patience for drama. No tolerance for lies. Just a razor-sharp mind and a talent for reading people in seconds. Her show, Justice for All with Judge Helena, specialized in exactly this kind of case. Small claims, big attitudes, and defendants who thought they were smarter than everyone else. David went online, found the application form, and poured his entire nightmare into it. He attached screenshots of Noreen's reviews, copies of her complaint to the Better Business Bureau, the health inspection reports still stamped "no violations found," his booking calendar with crossed out events and the word "canceled" written over and over again. He attached the contract, the emails where he offered refunds, the messages where she demanded a public confession. He hit send, not really expecting anything. 2 days later, his phone rang. "Hi, this is Carla from Justice for All with Judge Helena. Is this David Reyes?" The producers didn't need much convincing. A hardworking small business owner with a spotless decade-long record, up against a self-righteous grandmother who'd launched a public crusade over a contract she refused to read. Television gold. They called Noreen next. And that's where she made the mistake that sealed her fate, because when the show invited her to bring her lawsuit onto national TV, she didn't hesitate. She said yes. In her mind, this was an upgrade. Why settle for a cramped local courtroom when she could embarrass David in front of the whole country? She didn't prepare evidence. She prepared a performance. For weeks, she rehearsed her lines in the mirror. She practiced the perfect quiver in her voice when describing her poor, traumatized granddaughter. She wrote pages of complaints in looping cursive, not about what actually happened, but about how she felt. She called 3 friends and asked them to write statements about how stressed she'd been after the disaster. None of them were at the party. It didn't matter. Asterisk. Most importantly, she crafted her image. She picked out a conservative navy skirt suit, expensive, tasteful, with a brooch shaped like a dove to signal, I'm a peaceful, respectable person. She had her hair professionally set, soft curls around her face, subtle makeup, sensible heels. She planned it like a costume for the role of upright, wronged grandmother. What Noreen never asked herself was a simple question. What if the judge doesn't buy it? What if the judge looks past the pearls and the trembling voice and asks for something she doesn't have? Evidence. While Noreen practiced looking wounded, the show's research team was busy doing their own work. They pulled Noreen's name through every available database. Public court records, consumer complaint boards, HOA minutes. Local news mentions. They found things, more than anyone expected. By the time the taping day arrived, a thick manila folder with Noreen's name on it sat on Judge Helena's desk. It was heavy with printouts, highlighted sections, sticky notes. The morning of the show, two separate worlds were getting ready to collide. In one dressing room, David buttoned up a simple white shirt, smoothed his tie with shaking hands, and stared at his reflection. He'd brought a navy binder jammed with documents, organized, labeled, cross-referenced. His wife had helped him color code sections, contract, messages, reviews, financial impact. He wasn't here to act. Asterisk, he was here to survive. In another room down the hall, Noreen sat in front of a mirror surrounded by light bulbs, sipping tea from a paper cup, like a queen waiting for her cue. Her assistant producer knocked and stepped inside. Mrs. Whitfield, how are you feeling? He asked. Prepared, she said with a cool smile. I just hope that young man has the decency to admit what he did when the judge hears my side. She rehearsed one last time. The shocked expression, the catch in her throat, the carefully chosen word, betrayed. She planned to drop at least 3 times. The studio audience filed in, whispering to each other, not knowing exactly what case they were about to see, but sensing from the producer's energy that it was going to be a good one. Regular viewers had learned how to read the room. More cameras than usual. The warm-up guy telling them, trust me, stay very quiet during this one. The way the stage manager whispered something into Judge Helena's ear just before she took her seat behind the scenes. Judge Helena opened the folder with Noreen's name. Her eyes moved fast. Years of experience let her absorb documents like other people read headlines. Here was David's contract clean. Clear. Here were the photos of perfectly arranged food. Here were the inspection reports. Here were the canceled bookings. Then she flipped to the second section. Small claims cases going back 5 years. Complaints to various businesses. HOA violations for harassing neighbors through repeated letters and notes. A resignation letter from the board of a local charity, mentioning ongoing conflicts with Mrs. Whitfield. Judge Helena didn't smile, but something in her expression shifted, a slight tightening around the eyes that longtime fans recognized. She smelled a pattern. The bailiff stepped out. All rise. The music hit. The audience stood. Judge Helena Cole walked in with that same measured, no-nonsense stride she'd had for decades. She sat. The audience sat. The cameras locked in. In the matter of Reyes versus Whitfield, the bailiff called. David Reyes is suing Noreen Whitfield for $20,000 in damages resulting from an alleged harassment campaign. Ms. Whitfield is countersuing for $4,500 for emotional distress and the cost of replacement. Catering. Judge Helena glanced at David. You're the plaintiff, she said. Mr. Reyes, tell me briefly what happened. David took a breath, his hands resting on the edge of the podium. Your Honor, my parents started Reyes Family Kitchen 30 years ago. We cater events. Ms. Whitfield hired us to cater her granddaughter's party. She signed a contract for grilled chicken, rice, beans, vegetarian trays, and a small dessert table. We delivered exactly that on time. When we arrived, she claimed she'd ordered something completely different. When I offered a discount and a refund, she refused and told us to remove the food. Since then, she's posted false reviews, joined neighborhood groups to smear us, filed complaints with agencies, and now this lawsuit. We've lost bookings, money, and peace. He slid the binder forward. The judge nodded, taking it from the clerk. Throughout his explanation, Noreen shook her head dramatically, sighing, rolling her eyes so aggressively that even people in the back row could see it. Judge, Helena noticed, but she didn't say anything. Not yet. When David finished, the judge turned her gaze to Noreen. Mrs. Whitfield, she said, you'll have a chance to respond. But first, I'm going to look at this contract. She put on her glasses, read for a few seconds, then looked up. Mr. Reyes, does this contract bear Miss Whitfield's signature? Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Whitfield, is that your signature? Judge Helena asked. Noreen tilted her chin upward. I suppose so, she said. I sign a lot of papers. That doesn't mean it's... Right. That was the first crack. Judge. Helena's eyebrow lifted almost imperceptibly. We'll get back to that, she said. Calmly. What nobody in that studio knew yet was that this quiet, almost boring exchange was just the start, because in less than 20 minutes, Noreen was going to play her ultimate card. I'm older, I know better. You must respect me. And she was going to say it to a judge who was 13 years older than her, on national television. Judge Helena let David lay out his story in full detail. He didn't embellish. He didn't dramatize. He described what happened in the dry, careful way of someone who knows every word might be picked apart. He walked the judge through the consultation, the contract, the menu, the arrival time, her demand to remove all the food, the multiple offers to refund, the screenshots of reviews, the complaints to official agencies every time he mentioned evidence. The clerk handed Judge Helena another sheet from the binder, photos of buffets, screenshots, emails. Noreen exhaled loudly. Again and again, each sigh more exaggerated than the last dot, when David mentioned the health inspections that found nothing. She muttered, just loud enough for the microphones. Of course they didn't. Everyone covers for each other these days. The audience shifted. A few people glanced at each other like, is she serious? Judge Helena closed the binder and turned to Noreen. All right, Mrs. Whitfield, she said. Your turn. Tell me what happened. Noreen straightened. This was the moment she'd been practicing. Your Honor, she began, layering her voice with honey and hurt. I hired Mr. Reyes because I believe in supporting small businesses. I trusted him. I told him very clearly that I wanted steak, vegan options, a proper cake. The food he brought was completely wrong. It looked cheap. My guests were confused and embarrassed for me. I was devastated. This was my granddaughter's big day. She pressed her hand to her chest for emphasis, and when I tried to talk to him about it, he raised his voice and stormed out, leaving us with nothing. I had to scramble to find someone else at the last minute. I was humiliated in front of my family and friends. She glanced at the judge, then added, I have never been treated so disrespectfully in my entire life. Judge Helena listened, expression unreadable. Do you have any written proof? The judge asked. That you ordered steak, vegan options, and a 3-tier cake? I didn't think I needed proof, Noreen snapped. I told him. Any competent business person would know to double-check. That's not my question, Judge Helena said evenly. My question is, do you have any document that contradicts the contract he's provided? Noreen hesitated and shook her head. No, because I trusted him. I'm 69 years old, Your Honor. I don't have time to read piles of paperwork. That's his job. There it was again, age as a shield. Judge Helena leaned forward slightly. So you signed a contract you didn't read? Is that what you're telling me? I skimmed it, Noreen said. But I know what I said. I have an excellent memory. I was a school principal for 30 years. I ran charity events. I'm very organized. Yet you signed a written agreement that doesn't match what you claim you ordered, the judge said, because he wrote it wrong. Noreen shot back. Young people today don't pay attention. They think they know everything. That last sentence hung in the air. Judge Helena folded her hands. Mrs. Whitfield, she said slowly, in the last 5 years, how many businesses have you filed complaints against? The question seemed to come out of nowhere. Noreen smiled, misreading the direction completely. Well, she said, I don't keep a tally, but quite a few. I hold people to standards. I don't just sit back and let bad service slide. Try, Judge Helena said. Give me a number. Noreen thought for a second. Maybe 10? 12, she said. When you've lived as long as I have, you learn not to tolerate disrespect. 10 to 12. Judge Helena repeated. Name a few. Noreen eagerly obliged. There was the dry cleaner who ruined my silk blouse and tried to pretend it was fine. The restaurant that served me undercooked salmon. The landscaper who didn't trim my hedges evenly. The nail salon that kept me waiting 15 minutes past my appointment. I'm not afraid to speak up. As she rattled off grievances, the audience's mood shifted from curiosity to a kind of fascinated disbelief. Judge Helena's voice stayed neutral, but her questions got sharper. In any of those cases, she asked, did a court ever rule in your favor? I didn't go to court for most of them, Noreen said. They usually just give me what I want when they realize I'm serious. Did any of them ask you not to return? The judge asked. Noreen's lips thinned. A couple of places overreacted, she said. Some people can't handle criticism. Mrs. Whitfield, Judge Helena said, did a local restaurant called the Green Fork ban you permanently from the premises 2 years ago? Noreen blinked. They did, the judge continued, holding up a paper. For repeated verbal abuse of staff and creating a hostile environment. Do you deny that? They were lying, Noreen said quickly. Young workers these days are so sensitive. Answer my question. Were you banned? She swallowed. Yes, but they deserved it. Judge Helena set the paper down. You've also been the subject of 3 separate homeowner association complaints for harassing neighbors over perceived violations, she said. Is that correct? That's exaggerated, Noreen muttered. And you served on the board of the Riverside Women's Outreach until you resigned by mutual agreement, after conflicts with staff and other members. Yes or no? How did you? Yes or no? Mrs. Whitfield. Yes, she whispered. The room was silent. Asterisk judge. Helena let the silence stretch. Then she went in for the core of the case. You say Mr. Reyes left you with nothing, she said. Yet these photos, she lifted the prints, show fully prepared food in chafing dishes. You ordered food for 80 people. You told him to remove all of it. Is that correct? I wasn't going to serve food that was wrong, Noreen said, her voice growing shriller. I have standards. He offered you a refund, the judge said, flipping to the emails. Then a larger refund. Then a voucher. Then $1,000 just to end this. You refused every time. Why? Because I don't want his money, Noreen snapped. I want him to admit he ruined everything. I want him to say it publicly where people can see it. Otherwise, how will anyone learn? And until he does that, Judge Helena said, you've decided to punish him. With reviews. With complaints. With this lawsuit. It's called accountability, Noreen said. The judge's tone sharpened just a notch. Accountability for what, Mrs. Whitfield? For following a written contract you signed. Noreen's face flushed deep red. I told you, she said, her voice rising. I am 69 years old. I have run schools. I have organized galas. I've been in charge of more things than that young man could dream of. I know what I asked for, and I know what I got. And I will not have my integrity questioned by someone half my age who thinks a piece of paper matters more than my word. Judge Helena's gaze hardened. Mrs. Whitfield, she said. Very quietly, I'm 82 years old. The audience sucked in a breath. I have been a judge longer than you were a principal, she went on. I have presided over tens of thousands of cases. I have raised children and grandchildren. I have seen every lie, every excuse, and every version of do you know who I am? You can imagine. She leaned in, and I'm telling you right now, your age does not make your memory more reliable than a written contract. For a split second, Noreen's eyes flickered. A sane person would have backed down. She did in single quotes T. instead. She did the one thing that guaranteed her complete destruction. She squared her shoulders. stared directly at Judge Helena, and said, very slowly, "Young lady, you need to learn to respect your elders. People like you don't understand what real experience looks like. When someone my age tells you something, you listen. You don't talk back. You don't question. That's what's wrong with your generation. No respect." The words hung in the air like smoke. The audience froze. The bailiff's eyebrows shot up. David looked up from his notes, stunned. Somewhere in the back row, someone's hand flew to their mouth. A 69-year-old woman had just called an 82-year-old judge young lady and lectured her about respecting elders. On national television, for 3 long seconds. Judge Helena did not move. Then, with terrifying calm, she reached for the thick manila folder on her desk and opened it. The look on her face said, "Everything game over, asterisk, Mrs. Whitfield." Judge Helena began. Her voice so controlled it was almost soft. "Since you want to talk about age and experience, let's look at what you've done with your 69 years. She pulled out the first document. "In the last 5 years, you have filed 17 formal complaints against businesses in this county alone," she said. "Not counting anonymous online reviews, 17. Noreen's mouth opened, then closed. Of those 17, the judge continued, 15 were found to be without merit or were dropped. 2 resulted in small goodwill refunds from businesses that simply didn't want to deal with you anymore." She set the paper aside. "That's not holding people accountable. Mrs. Whitfield, that is a pattern." The audience was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. Next sheet. 2 years ago, the Green Fork restaurant banned you permanently. Their written statement says you called a young server stupid, useless, and a disgrace in front of other customers. When the manager asked you to stop, you shouted that you would destroy their reputation. Noreen's voice trembled. "They provoked me. They didn't cook my salmon properly. Salmon that, according to their records, you had already eaten more than half of." Judge Helena replied without missing a beat. Another paper. "Your homeowners association logged 3 separate incidents in which you left notes on neighbors' doors, called code enforcement without cause, and accused one family of bringing down property values because their children played too loudly in the yard. I was protecting our community." Noreen burst out. "From children," the judge said flatly. She pulled out one last document. "And then there's this," she said. "Minutes from the Riverside Women's Outreach Board where you served for 18 months. I'll read directly." She adjusted her glasses. "While we appreciate Mrs. Whitfield's enthusiasm, her ongoing pattern of undermining staff, refusing to accept group decisions, and verbally attacking volunteers has created a hostile environment inconsistent with our mission." She looked up. "They asked you to resign. Mrs. Whitfield, you didn't step back to rest. You were pushed out because your behavior was toxic." Noreen was visibly shaking now. "They're all overreacting," she said weakly. "I just expect people to do their jobs right. No one has standards anymore." Judge Helena closed the folder with a quiet, definitive thud. "I have very high standards, Mrs. Whitfield," she said. "For evidence, for truth, and for how we treat other human beings." She pointed slightly toward David. "This man fulfilled a contract you signed. He showed up on time. He brought the food you ordered. When you decided you wanted something else, you refused every reasonable attempt to compromise. Instead, you launched what can only be called a campaign. False reviews, exaggerated complaints, official reports that wasted public resources. All because he wouldn't confess to a mistake he did not make." Noreen tried one last time. "I was humiliated in front of my family." "No," Judge Helena cut in. "You humiliated yourself. You told a caterer to remove perfectly good food because it didn't fit your fantasy. You punished him not for wrongdoing, but for resisting your control. You hid behind your age like it was a shield that excused everything." She leaned forward, letting each word land. "Your age does not entitle you to lie. Your age does not entitle you to abuse service workers. Your age does not entitle you to rewrite reality and demand everyone else bow to it." Asterisk. Noreen's eyes filled with tears, not of remorse, but of outrage. "Young lady, stop," Judge Helena snapped. And the word cracked through the room like a whip. I am not your young lady, Mrs. Whitfield. I am the judge. And I'm older than you. I remember a time when elders earned respect by how they behaved. You do not get to weaponize a value as important as respect your elders to cover up bullying. She turned slightly, addressing David. Mr. Reyes, your documentation is excellent. Your attempts to resolve this privately were more than generous. You are exactly the kind of small business owner our communities rely on. Then, back to Noreen. I find in favor of the plaintiff for the full amount of his documented losses, $20,000, she said. Additionally, I am awarding $5,000 in sanctions for your frivolous countersuit and your pattern of abusive complaints. That's a total of $25,000, Mrs. Whitfield. Noreen gasped, grabbing the edge of the podium. You can't. I can, Judge Helena said. And I just did. She wasn't finished. You will not receive a dime from this lawsuit. You will, however, pay dearly for the damage you tried to inflict on this man and his family. Maybe a financial consequence will teach you what decency, community boards, and restaurant managers could not. She paused, then delivered the line that would be replayed millions of times online. Respect is not a senior citizen discount on bad behavior. It is earned by how you treat people. And based on your behavior, you are overdrawn. The audience couldn't hold back anymore. A low murmur of approval swelled into a wave of applause as the bailiff called for order. Case dismissed, Judge Helena said, slamming the gavel down. Just like that, it was over. David exhaled, shoulders shaking, tears welling up in his eyes. 6 months of stress, fear, and helpless anger cracked open in a single moment of vindication. Noreen stood frozen, white-knuckled on the podium, staring as if she could will the judgment away. The bailiff gently guided her toward the exit, her pearls, her perfect hair. Her carefully crafted image, none of it could shield her from the simple fact that, for once, she picked a fight with someone she could not bully. The episode aired 2 weeks later, within hours. The clip of Noreen calling an 82-year-old judge, young lady, started spreading on social media. People stitched it, duetted it, reacted to it. The hashtag respect is earned started trending. Comments flooded in. Imagine weaponizing respect your elders against someone actually older than you. Shout out to Judge Helena for saying what so many service workers wish they could say. I'm ordering from Reyes Family Kitchen next time I'm in that city. Just on principle. David's website crashed twice from the surge of traffic. Emails poured in from people wanting to book events, buy gift cards, or just send messages of support. I saw you on TV, one message read. My parents owned a small restaurant. We went through something similar. So proud you fought back. His star rating climbed back up not because the algorithm magically reset, but because hundreds of viewers left 5-star reviews praising his professionalism and resilience. As for Noreen, the internet has a long memory. Clips of her meltdown became reaction memes. Her young lady line turned into shorthand for every time someone tried to hide behind age to avoid accountability. Local businesses quietly shared her photo in staff chats with a warning. If she walks in, call the manager immediately. She'd wanted to teach David a lesson about respect. Instead, she paid $25,000 to teach the whole world a better one, that age does not excuse cruelty, that respect your elders is not a free pass to abuse people, and that eventually, if you keep using power to hurt others, you will meet someone who sees straight through you and has a gavel. If you want more stories where manipulators get exposed, bullies get humbled, and regular people finally get justice, make sure you're subscribed and share this video with someone who needs to remember. Respect isn't owed, it's earned.